Scott Wilson, you're a writer and a co-executive producer for season 4 of Fargo, which tells the story of a mob war between Black and Italian syndicates in the 1950s. So first off, what did you think about coming on board to tell this kind of crime story that's also rooted in kind of the histories of not just anti-Black racism, but also anti-Italian racism that America has a history of?
Um, yeah, I mean, it was exciting and daunting. I think Noah Hawley and FX. When Noah had this idea, which is basically kind of a prequel to season 2, he knew that he was going to be telling a story that was, half of the lead characters were African American, and the other half were these, Italian immigrants. And I think he and FX knew that he really wanted to make sure that he had uh, a writer's room that could represent those perspectives to the best that you can. You know what I mean? No one person can represent an entire group, but it's ideal to have as many perspectives as you can, particularly if you're writing about a specific group of people. So, but it was scary because Fargo is, it has a specific tone. You know what I mean? It's built on the Coen brothers tone, which is really kind of off center and kind of darkly comedic. Um, Meanwhile, we were going to be talking about these really heavy themes, kind of assimilation and racism and Jim Crow era, laws and that kind of stuff. So it was exciting, but it was a little daunting as well.
Yeah, and that's one of those difficulties of, we talk, a lot of people talk about the Black experience, but it's of millions and millions of different experiences. So, like, you can never have one voice be representative. You need kind of that multitude of perspectives. So what was that writer's room like, and sort of the process of building out this story and really getting the details right?
Well, first of all, it was, like I said, it was a really diverse room. So it was myself, my writing partner Enzo Maletti, and then there was Stephanie Robinson, who's one of the great writers at FX, who wrote on Atlanta, and also I think is a EP on What We Do in the Shadows. Then we have Francesca Sloan, who's also another brilliant writer. She's from El Salvador. And then we had a playwright who was a first-time TV writer, named Lee Edward Colston, who's like has a really interesting story, African American guy. So I think a lot of it was just Noah had already written the pilot and kind of had set the premise, and I think we spent the first few weeks just kind of trying to tackle what themes we were going to try to take on, you know what I mean, and what were the stories that we thought could kind of convey these kind of weighty ideas that we were going to try to implement into the story, and at the same time make sure that we kind of hung on to that tone. So I think we spent probably a good month just kind of blue sky pitching and talking about our personal experiences, and we had a lot of Noah gave us a massive amount of research before the room started, so we really had to dig into all of that. But that was kind of the beginning. That was kind of how we leapt into it.
And as you mentioned, Fargo has the foundation of that Coen Brothers film, plus 3 previous seasons of the show with its very particular unique tone. Like, how is it adapting your own kind of personal writing style to fit the world and the tone and the energy of this particular series?
Well, fortunately for Enzo and myself, we are massive Coen Brothers fans. I mean, those are some of those movies are our favorites. And in particular, I mean, Miller's Crossing has always been a favorite of ours, and this season 4 of Fargo really kind of drew inspiration from that particular movie. So I think for us, it's scary to try to emulate a voice that you revere so much, but I think we were really excited, and we had been working with Noah prior to getting involved with Fargo, and on a separate project. And so I think that he knew that the three of us kind of had similar sensibilities, and that we were adept at kind of picking up a voice and kind of running with this. So it was great. I mean, I love, Fargo, but well before we worked on it, it was one of my favorite shows, and is one of my favorite shows. So I think it was a little scary, but we were anxious to take it on.
And one of the things that seems like it must be especially challenging for a show like Fargo and a season like this that has so many moving parts, a number of characters, and like interconnected plots and schemes and interactions. Like is there like a board with like the yarn connecting everything and the pins and like a conspiracy theorist just to kind of just arrange the architecture of the season?
Yeah, that would have helped. I wish you had been there to tell us to do that. Yeah, I mean, we kind of broke the entire season before any of us went off to write. It kind of, there's like 20 plus principal characters, and you know, probably, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, plot storyline. So yeah, it was very intricate and sometimes hard to wrap your head around, how many stories you had to service. And sometimes, frankly, you felt like you were leaving a really cool story behind because there were so many characters. But yeah, I mean, our writer's room was just kind of covered in whiteboards and scribbles and and post-its and the whole nine, because we just had so much to kind of keep track of.
Another interesting thing about telling a story like this is there aren't very many good guys per se. Like everyone has their own moral compromises, and some to more extents than others. How, as you are writing something, how do your sympathies kind of shift from maybe one episode to another, or as you're writing a character, do you find yourself sympathizing with them more? And did you lean one way or the other in Mob War when things were over?
No, not in that story particularly. I mean, I think that what Enzo and I, my partner, we always aim to try to be empathetic to all the characters. You know what I mean? In order to write kind of authentically and to make the characters feel alive, I mean, you need to kind of have a grasp on the way that they see the world, whether or not you agree with it or not. And I think Fargo, I mean, these are two, it's two crime syndicates, you know what I mean? And your allegiances are, might fall to one side or the other because you like Chris Rock or because you like Jason Schwartzman, but they were criminals capable of doing really dark, things and hurting people and killing people. And I think the challenge is to try to make those decisions make sense. You know what I mean? I mean, I think those are the kind of the best stories is even when you see a character, and particularly this is a trope in Coen Brothers movies, when you see a character make really questionable decisions, but you've been oriented into their world. And so you kind of understand, yeah, that's not the best idea, but I understand how they got to that point. And so I think we always want to have that kind of ambiguity and not really side with one character or the other, not make things black or white. Because I don't think that the world is like that, really.
And the show, this season in particular, feels very much like a writer's and an actor's paradise in the sense that a lot of times there are these opportunities for these very revealing monologues, and getting to delve deep into characters in that way. Like, did you have a particular favorite to write or a character to write for, or how much is that enjoyable as a writer, and how much pressure is
Oh, it's great. I mean, that's like when Noah kind of brings you into play with that, with that set of toys. It's just it's so much fun. I think some of like we had the lesbian prison escapees, Zelmer and Swanee, and I think those were immediately. A couple of my favorite characters, they were the outlaws. You know what I mean? That didn't, it's like if the crime had their set of code and the police had their codes. Obviously, these outlaws had no code, and they kind of represented that idea. And I remember when Noah just even told us that he had this vague notion of these two characters. I think I said, like, before we had seen anything, I was like, oh, well, those are already my favorite characters, because I knew how fun they were going to be, and we were going to introduce them in this kind of homage to Raising Arizona, this prison escape. And so they're some of my favorite characters. Tim Oliphant's character, he played the U.S. Marshal, Deafy Wickware, and we had a lot of fun writing that character. He had really a really stylized way of talking, and that was kind of fun to create. And then Orietta Mayflower, who was played by Jessie Buckley, also had her own really kind of heightened, stylized way of speaking. And so it was just fun. It was like you constantly putting on different hats to try to write in a voice that's really distinctive for each character. So yeah, it was a good time.
Well, congratulations on Fargo. Good luck. I know you've got a very exciting project coming up, so good luck with that. And we will have you back soon for our group discussion.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.